I might follow the back and keep it on.
I'd like to call to order this regular Board of Education meeting for the School District of Sturgeon Bay for Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. Would everyone please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. And then can we have the roll call?
Commissioner Schultz,
Here.
Commissioner Howard,
Here.
Commissioner Cruz. Here. Commissioner Holland. Here. Commissioner Stefani,
Here.
Commissioner Jennerton.
She did tell us she's not going to be here.
Yeah, excuse me.
It's excused.
Commissioner Chisholm. Here. Commissioner Wood,
Here.
Commissioner Albert.
Here. Excellent. Well, then we are down to the Student Council Representative Report by Christy Braun. So you have the floor.
Hi, I'm a bit under the weather today, so I'm gonna keep it kind of short, but, so it's the holiday season and we have a lot going on in student council. Our candy cane sales wrap up tomorrow. We've been doing that for about 2 weeks and we've made close to $100, which we're planning to donate to Adopt a Soldier. We've also had a lot of participation in our holiday theme dress up days, this week. And we'll be showing off our ugly sweaters in a contest at the talent show for a prize. The class with the least participation and each dress up day gets a deduction put in their jar for our penny war we're also doing this week. We're just still not sure what charity this money is going to go to though. And then finally, last weekend, we did some holiday shopping for local families. We helped out 2 anonymous families with a total of 8 children. We spent about $50 on each child, and we're super excited for them to receive them. As for the future, January is pretty light for us. We don't have a lot going on, so we can take a break and kind of relax for a bit.
Oh, cool, you did that for those families.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah.
Christy, if any of the board members wanted to participate, the dress up day tomorrow, I believe, is this the family?
Family pictures, so you can wear some flannel and match with a friend.
Or match with a coworker, family member, friend, you be the judge.
Very nice. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Feel better soon.
Yeah,
you.
go get some rest, chicken soup, whatever you. Next, we have the public comment section. Individuals who wish to address the board should be residents of the school district of Sturgeon Bay or parents of students open enrolled into the district. Speakers are asked to share their name, address, and be aware that comments may be limited to 3 minutes with discretion of the board president. I would raise my hand at 2 minutes. So I don't know if there's anyone that's going to approach the board for comment section. Anyone? Bueller? All right, we don't have anyone there. So let's go. Now we are at
You need the agenda hard copy. Bring up the background. The white here, bring it up. Right, so I think we just need this one right here.
yeah, okay, yes, motion to adopt the agenda. So sorry, I skipped down to below that. My error.
I move
Please.
to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented by Commissioner Chisholm and seconded by Commissioner Alger. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we are down to the recognition portion. employees are recognized in the month of December, and we have a recognition for Cheryl Feaster.
We do. If I could have Cheryl Feaster and Katie Smullen come on down to the podium here for Cheryl's recognition. I think Principal Katie DeVillers is also part of this, but not able to be with us this evening.
She was. It was Katie's idea and she said, do you want to be part of this? And I said, yes, we need like a day to honor Cheryl Feaster and so much. So I'd like to read what Katie DeVillers wrote and I added a little bit. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
All right. So Katie wrote, it's hard to narrow down the specific reasons I have to recognize Cheryl Feaster because she is one of those teachers who not only gives it her all every day, but she also coaches every day with a positive and compassionate attitude that shows her students and staff just how much she cares for them and our whole school community. She always considers the students' abilities and needs and strives to meet them in a compassionate and patient way. She takes the time to work with students who struggle and finds ways for them to engage in her music class successfully. One little guy is just struggle. Like, I just remember you being like, do you need a hug? And like, he was just like, and he just melted into Cheryl. And this was a kid who was just having a really hard time. And it was like a turning point that moment. So that's just, yeah. A recent example, Katie goes on to write, her excellent work was our first and second grade winter concert. She spent countless hours preparing students, working with many others throughout the district to ensure the student experience is positive and successful. Ours was too. I was at both. They were wonderful. Cheryl is also a terrific advocate and has put in tremendous hours working with the entire playground fundraising committee. She constantly looks for every opportunity to get a word out and increases the donations for this great cause. Her willingness to pitch in is just, it never wavers. She's the PBIS Tier 1 coach at Sawyer, which is awesome. And it's just a rarely week goes by that Cheryl does not share an idea to offer support to make our school community better. So Katie, just says congratulations, thank you. And I also went on to say, I'm so impressed with Sunrise Scoop, which I shared with you before, 3rd edition. This was Cheryl's brainchild, just one example of her creativity with our X group. The kids are writing on to their January, February issue already. They can't seem to stop writing, which is incredible. Just such a great team player, and we're just so grateful for you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Carol.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Certificate. And I believe a nice copy of comments you just read. And a mug.
That'll make my mom cry, so thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Put in over the holidays. It's completely up to you.
Right? It'll be water or coffee. Thank you.
Awesome. Cheryl, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't have to say anything. They just say.
Well, you can.
I came to Sturgeon Bay. This is my 6th year now, and I knew coming here was going to be a good decision, and it has been very, very much. I enjoy working with the kids so much, and I really had to dig deep when I got here. I thought I knew everything, and I realized I knew nothing. You know, but I just had to really dig deep to find a way to reach the kids, and I'm so happy with how the community has supported, especially the music department and all the things that I can do with the kids. And what I really love most is our administrative team here, because you can't care for kids until you care about your teachers, and they really care about their teachers, and they make it so that we can do our job well. And I really, really love that. I love that they care about the people that are working with the kids, and it makes a huge difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks a lot.
And want to push the other.
It's okay. It's working. Just a technical thing, making sure our stuff is working properly, which it is. Great. Which for those of you that aren't watching, because there's multiple ways this meeting is being carried to the public. One of them, which is tonight for the first time, we are YouTube live right now. So we are live on YouTube, so.
What is it? What channel is it?
It's a VR Sturgeon Bay Schools YouTube channel. Yes, we
I
do.
mean, I've
And,
watched it a lot.
well, yeah, why wouldn't
What channel would this be?
Right, I'll start today. But yeah, this is the new district, the new district Zoom account, because the Zoom talks better with YouTube and all that. So thanks to our tech folks that have tested this out. Jen's representing on their behalf tonight. Spencer, I think, is at one of the city council committee meetings this week. I think he's got them every night this week other than Friday. So they got it all set up for us, and it's, I think, maybe a few second delay between what we see and what YouTube watchers might see. But yeah, after a process and some different things with the right cable TV through the city, as you know, and technologies and whatnot, we've got that system now. It seems like pretty much figured out. So thanks to them.
Good.
That's what we got.
Excellent. So next we are at the consent agenda portion, and that consists of point one, approving the meeting minutes of November 16th, 2022 regular Board of Education meeting and the minutes from December 7th, 2022 board learning session. Additionally, point two, approving the November bills. Point three, accepting grants and donations. The choral program received a donation of $300 from Dennis Connolly. The choral program received $128 in donations at the concert towards the New York trip. The Sturgeon Bay Parent Teacher Group donated $296 for the third grade Widener Center trip and $650 to special ed students to go to Door County Adventure Center's Team Leadership Center. In addition, the hospital donated $200 for cooking and baking at PATH once a month. Donations for the Alec Simon Assemblies. United Way donated $3,000. Sonny's donated $1,500. The hospital donated $1,000, and Nicolay National Bank donated $500 for the Simon concert. The hospital also donated $1,500 for special ed kits and $1,000 for kitchen equipment. Each first grade teacher received $150 from Smile Dentistry to use to support their students in classroom work. Also, the Raybrook Foundation donated to Healthy Alternatives within our school meal program. The Sawyer School Mentoring Program received a $500 donation from the Door County Community Foundation. Just pause there. What a wonderful thing, all those donations. I don't read that many donations every month. That's just outstanding to everybody who donated. Point four, resignations and retirements. Derek Jennerjohn is resigning from his high school strength and conditioning position, as well as his head of middle school football coaching position. Point five, approved Sturgeon Bay High School course description book for the 2023-2024 school year. Since course selection and scheduling process gets underway well before the end of the year, the course description guide comes to you for approval in the winter. Changes are highlighted in the Sturgeon Bay High School principal report from Mr. Nervy. Point six, similar to point five, approved the TJ Walker Middle School course offering for 2023-2024. Same kind of thing there. We thought it would made sense to have this occur in the same month as the high school course offering, and proving both would be both effective and efficient. A motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented is recommended.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Alger and seconded by Commissioner Holland to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we are down to the operations agenda. And point one is just, we don't have anything on point one. Point two, approve the base for the scoreboard at the football field. So remember, just to review, we have a scoreboard issue. We have to put a base so the scoreboard has something to lay on, so to speak. So that's what this is for.
Yeah. We're not going to ask the board to approve anything with that tonight. As Jake has shared before, and Jake and Sully have been working to get some different options for us. We thought, well, yes, through insurance and deductibles, the scoreboard, theoretically would be coming at a reduced cost when we weren't planning to buy a scoreboard. The flip side is the base, theoretically, from what we've gotten so far, would be more expensive than what we really would like to spend. So they're continuing to pursue options. So stay tuned. Possibly next month, we'll have a little more for you, or some other point in the future. So no action requested from that tonight, but we wanted it on there just in case. So I think we can, speaking of some of these costs and maintenance type stuff, probably go next night.
All right, so the next item is just review for bid for high school roof. We had hoped, because that was 1 o'clock this afternoon. I have not heard anything past that point, so here we go.
We can talk through that if that's that
Yes,
continue for the moment, and then I'll let Jake weigh in as well.
yes.
All right, so Jake put at all of our spots. So you've heard us talk before, very brief, excuse me, briefly about our roofing consultant, right? The gentleman who years ago, we didn't have someone like that in the district, which is, we believe, part of why we had some of the issues with roofing that we had roughly 20 years ago. Now, that roofing consultant not only helps us with bid processes such as these, which we're about to talk about, he's also the person who comes on site and makes sure when roofers do sections that they're doing it properly in order to avoid some of the issues and leaks that have built up eventually over time that we've talked about in this room before. All right, so again, that consultant has worked out for us quite well. John is very pleased that we have that. So maybe I'll turn it over to Jake just to talk a little bit about what this is before us tonight and how we can proceed.
So bids were due earlier today. You can see on, by the way, there's a sheet in front of you. Looks like whilst we are looking at it. They were due this morning at 11 a.m. I believe the bids were open at 1 this afternoon. And we received 2 bids. The low accepted bid being $385,995 is about 20% higher than we expected, which is commonplace these days, for better or worse. We do have funds to cover that. That's Fund 41 and Funds 46 that we would cover this with. So no issues with being able to afford this, at least for right now.
Real briefly, for anyone from the public, Jake, and also, and again, the board hears about this regularly, but what's Fund 41 again, and what's Fund 46 again? Just brief summary.
So Fund 41 and Fund 46 are a couple of maintenance funds that we utilize to help control the tax levy, more or less, by trying to do a little bit more to control our equalization aid, which offsets the tax levy. And so Fund 41, we levy into this year. We went a little bit lower for a number of reasons for that levy. But we had levied a little bit more a couple of years ago. So we had some a fund balance there. Fund 46, we set up a few years ago. We transfer funds as needed into there. That's the gist of those two funds. And the roof that's going to be replaced is the area over the tech ed in some TJ Walker Middle School. Right, so a rather big area, if you will.
So in looking at the item, we had kind of thought through the language. And so really, this is one of those where we can look at approving as we think about if the board's comfortable making a motion, then we can again talk through anything else that's needed. But the concept of approving really this middle school roofing project theoretically as presented, and then we could say with a not to exceed amount of $385,995, if that works for the group.
I move to approve a middle school roofing project as presented, not to exceed $385,995. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Holland and second by Commissioner Chisholm to approve the bid for $385,995. Further discussion on this?
one quick note, if I could, President
Yes.
Stefani. Again, more so for the public than the board. But when we had our last capital referendum, we talked about how we didn't want to have a large dollar figure added to that referendum to be doing all the roof sections. But for the most part, tried going what we've done in recent years, after there was a lot of deferred maintenance, as some of you would recall, whether on our board or other boards years ago, to keep that going. Plus, remember, by doing this, a chunk or two, I'll just say in air quotes, a year, that prevents like not only the expense of the capital referendum, but then all of a sudden, roofs all across the district having to be redone at the same time, 20 years. So few different things going on. I know people have kind of come onto the board, and this isn't something we talk about a ton, but just a reminder of how we got to this point.
I have actually a question, because, as we do the sections, there appears to be, if you're on the board a while, there's always a roof that we're replacing.
Yes.
Like generally annually, we're replacing something or
Yes.
sort. So this is a 20% increment. I mean, this is almost $80,000 more,
Yes.
than budget for this one. Do we know next year's roof already? Like, John, if you can look at the crystal ball, is it a big one like this, or is it a smaller section? Just
I
wondering.
haven't asked, I have that, I'm sure somewhere, what would be the hierarchy of what's needed.
Mhm.
I didn't ask on that specific one, what would be planned for next year.
And I would assume that this will be better moving forward in that we have 3 buildings now rather than 4, right? We were when we had 4,
Yeah.
you know,
For example, last year we did the roof over at Sunrise, which we did it over the old section. We don't have to do that same project over at Sunset anymore. In fact, that was a little bit of the impetus to start looking
Correct.
at a facility study, was that we knew we would have 500,000-600,000+ in just roof repairs.
right, let
over
alone
at Sunset.
windows, let alone asbestos, space, all the things we have. Yeah, right.
Maybe along with that plan question though, Mike, which is a good one, I think. So going back to when we often talk about getting the clock ticking on maintenance fund. Remember, we had to have a long-term plan, which the board can choose to modify at any point. And really at that point, we were focusing on a variety of aspects with roof. If I'm remembering, part of establishing the fund, which is what, coming up on, I think, 6-ish years ago now.
Yeah, we did it 5 years ago this past summer because the funds are available now. And the long-term capital maintenance plan that we have approved is just roughing. So.
Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are now down to point 4, which is approving teacher associates.
Yes, I'll start with 4A. We have Michelle Stotts for special education teaching associate position. Director of Special Education and Pupil Services, Lindsay Berry, is pleased to recommend Michelle Stotts for the special education teacher associate position at Sawyer Elementary School. Michelle has earned her associate degree in child care and development, as well as her Wisconsin professional credential for child care administrator. Michelle has been in the early childhood education for her entire career and is excited to bring that experience to the Sawyer team. So a motion to approve Michelle Stotts as a special education teacher associate is recommended.
I move to approve Michelle Stotts as a special education teaching associate.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Holland, second by Commissioner Wood, to approve Michelle Stotts as a special education teaching associate. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Next
4B.
position, 4B, Monica Horton, Director of Special Education Pupil Services. Lindsay Berry is pleased to recommend Monica Horton for the special education teaching associate position, also at Sawyer Elementary School. Monica is an experienced registered nurse and has previous experience working for St. Mary's Hospital down in Green Bay. Monica is a great addition to the Sawyer team and she leads with kindness and compassion. The team is excited to welcome her to Sawyer. A motion to approve Monica Horton as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
I move to approve Monica Horton as a special education teaching associate.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Chisholm, seconded by Commissioner Auger, to approve Monica Horton as a special education teaching associate. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
4C, John Wilkinson. Lindsay Ferry is pleased to recommend John Wilkinson for the special education teaching associate position at Sawyer Elementary School. John holds a Master of Science degree from the University of Wisconsin Green Bay and has previous experience working as an insurance agent. While John doesn't have educational experience per se, he does bring a strong desire to make a positive impact in our community working with young children. John will no doubt connect with students and be a great influence also with the team at Sawyer Elementary. A motion to approve John Wilkinson as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
I'll make a motion to approve John Wilkinson as the special education teaching associate.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wood, second by Commissioner Holland, to approve John Wilkinson as a special education teaching associate. Do we have further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Next up, 4D, Natalie Tremper. I think this is the last of the vacancies at Sawyer that we're looking to fill at this moment. Lindsay Ferry is pleased to recommend Natalie Tremper for the special education teaching associate position at Sawyer. Natalie has extensive experience working with children as she was previously employed as a lead teacher at Northern Door Children's Center. Here, Natalie creates lesson plans, provide instruction and guided behavior plans for all students. Our team is excited to welcome Natalie to the Sawyer team. Motion to approve Natalie Tremper as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
Move to approve Natalie Tremper as a special education teaching associate.
We have a motion by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Wood, to approve Natalie Tremper as a special education teaching associate. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next up, letter E, Evelyn Charney. This should be the first of what I believe is 3 vacancies we're filling at Sunrise. Lindsay Ferry is pleased to recommend Evelyn Charney for the Special Education Teaching associate position at Sunrise Elementary. Evelyn will bring a variety of experiences to her new role, as she has served as a TEA at Door Community Child Development Center for the past year. Evelyn has experience working with children of all ages and will no doubt make a positive impact on the students across the street here at Sunrise. A motion to approve Evelyn Charney as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
I'll make a motion to approve Evelyn Charney as a special education teaching associate.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wood and seconded by Commissioner Cruz to approve Evelyn Charney as a special education teaching associate. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Next up, Kate Connolly, letter F. Lindsay Ferry is pleased to recommend Kate Connolly for a special education teaching associate position at Sunrise. Kate recently finished her student teaching at Sunrise and was eager to remain a staff member in the building. Kate will be working with students in all grade levels over there. The staff and students are excited to see her remain as a positive role model at Sunrise. A motion to approve Kate Connolly as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
I move to approve Kate Connolly as a special education teaching associate.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Chisholm to approve Kate Connolly as a special education teaching associate. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is passed.
Letter G, Dale Jorgensen. And the last of our 3 vacancies we're filling tonight at Sunrise. Lindsay Ferry is pleased to recommend Dale Jorgensen for a special education teaching associate position at Sunrise. Dale currently serves as a Northern Door YMCA art and STEM teacher and is excited to bring his enthusiasm and experience to our team at Sunrise. Dale has a Bachelor of Science degree in regular education and special education. The team is excited to watch him grow in his skills. And the team also looks forward to having Dale join the team. A motion to approve Dale Jorgensen as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
Make a motion to approve Dale Jorgensen as a special education teaching associate.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wood, second by Commissioner Holland to approve Dale Jorgensen as a special education teaching associate. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And our last vacancy to fill, letter H, Abigail Bethke. Lindsay Ferry is pleased to recommend Abigail Bethke for the special education teaching associate position at TJ Walker Middle School. Abigail has earned a degree in education from Vassar College with previous experience working with the EL population in 6th grade. Abigail currently works as the artist and education manager at the Pearl of Door County and is excited to come back into the educational setting working with students. Middle school team is eager for her to join their team. Motion to approve Abigail Bethke as a special education teaching associate is recommended.
I will make a motion to approve Abigail Bethke as a special education teaching associate.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Wood, second by Commissioner Holland to approve Abigail Bethke as a special education teaching associate. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good.
Before we go on to letter 5 or number 5, I asked Director Ferry to come by because she's smiling, but also because you can imagine what she spent a lot of time on.
No.
But also because, and we've talked about especially some of these hourly positions, right? But whether it's a board member or community member kind of watching, we just have 8 more associates than we've had in the past. It doesn't work that way. We've had vacancies and again, challenges and filling hourly jobs and some other dynamics. So just kind of at a glance, Lindsay, for the benefit of anyone from the public tracking it or for the board, kind of how we ended up with these 8 and we can knock on wood or whatever, because I know you have other work you need to do too.
Yeah,
Kind of how would you just give a brief summary about this?
sure. So this started back in April when we were still filling positions last year and then went into looking forward to the summer and to this year and our needs. And so I was at 28 positions and what I needed to fill at the start of this year. We're up 5. So when we talk about the needs of the district and where we're at, we did add 5 positions between Sawyer and Sunrise for additional students identified with special education needs. So we met those needs with additional support people. As a summary, I've interviewed and taken some thunder away from my report. I've interviewed 83 candidates since last April. 83. And so my staff, the board staff is complete. That finished today. My last shadow was this morning. She got done at 10:30. I handed her paperwork. I said, please sign. You're already on the board report. I don't have to scratch you. And she did, and it's great. And I'm really happy with the team that we have. I'm really happy with our teachers. This year we changed things a little bit because what we had found is that we bring people in and then they're not quite sure what they're getting into, or they think I know what school is, and then they come in and they're like, yeah, that's not for me. And so we go through that whole process and it doesn't work out. And so this year we changed tactics a little bit and we had them interview. And then I had them come in and shadow. And so they spent an hour or 2 with us in different positions to get a feel for the position, the team of teachers, the students, and so forth. So when they were accepting, they actually knew what they were getting into. And so we've had a lot of success with that. And then we turn around and we put those hours back on their first pay period too. So it works for them. They have enjoyed it. Teachers have enjoyed it, but it also takes a lot of time and planning for the teachers to do. So I'm really thankful for them. Also thankful for Ann Denise and Kim Gordon because they had to do all of the new employee paperwork too. And so this is not an easy process where you hear 8 hires. That is a lot of paperwork, traveling between hands, setting up insurance and all those things. So yeah, I'm very pleased. I think what did I call it? I was gonna bring wazoos tonight. I've since learned they're called kazoos. Sticking with wazoos, though, I like that better. But that is very exciting for our team. Their teachers needed it. And so we're looking ahead and hopefully second semester is smooth sailing.
I can't believe you spilled this that early because I remember not too many months ago talking about all the gaps.
Yeah,
And so way to go.
yeah,
That's
thanks.
amazing. And thank God we had the applicant.
Well, and I think that's telling too, thinking about next year, right, or future years, right? We had a little bit of a rush before the school year started where it had a lot more applicants or a deeper pool. And then it died down, but as, you know, tourism kind of stopped and we're getting into winter months and things are slowing down, we've seen an uptick and people are like, all right, you know, I want something different. The really great part about it is we were able to be pretty competitive in terms of hourly rates with what people were getting offered in the area. You know, and Jake and I went to Jake often for those and said, you know, this is what they make, we match them, and 9 times out of 10, I would say that we were able to match a lot of those. And so I feel really good about where we're at. I know we'll talk compensation pieces down the road, but yeah, it's a big relief today.
One last thing maybe for now, Lindsay. So you've tried a variety of different things, whether through some of working with Ann Demise on the substitute teacher front and the teacher associate front, little blurbs to our families through newsletters, emails, you've used Indeed. Anything else you would kind of add just this kindly for the board? And again, anyone from the public who's watching this is hiring changes.
Yeah, I think, you know, we did ZipRecruiter, we did LinkedIn, we've done Indeed. We have to pay per applicant, so those things you just kind of have to keep up on, but that is, you know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we got the bulk of our applicants through WeCan. And that's where people went to apply for any job in education, and it's really not that way anymore. And so we had a lot more applicants on Indeed. We also utilized Ann Demise, sent out, you know, parent requests for anyone to come in and help. Thankful for Ann too, because she's trying to build up a sub list for everyone. And anytime that she would get someone that was looking for full-time position, she'd give them to me. So I was stealing from the sub list from her to, you know, fill our positions. And so it really was a big team effort. The only other strategy that I did use is I did get in a car accident with a special ed teacher in Luxembourg. And then I asked him if he wanted to come work for me here too. So, you know, I'm just trying multiple strategies here. Doing whatever I can.
So are you gonna do more car accidents? Potentially get.
I know her husband's answer.
No. My driving record improved after the
And in fairness, you just got your vehicle back.
I
in the
just
last
did
24
months today. I didn't have her, so I just got her back last night, and so starting fresh, but you know, even my kids on the way out the door, they're like, Mom, drive safe. Fingers crossed we'll make it. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah,
very
thank
much
you for being so good.
And thanks. I know she was going to cover some of that in the reports, but I think, you know, some of us are kind of thinking that, right? You don't normally approve 8 like that. So I thought we would jump ahead and let her cover that before we go on to the next item.
Which is approving a teacher.
An English teacher, right? And what's more exciting than teaching high school English, right? All right, Principal Nerby recommends Mr. Zach Goblich as a high school English teacher for us. Mr. Goblich is completing his student teaching English position right here at Sturgeon Bay High School. He'll be graduated from UW Green Bay with a degree in secondary English. Having a student teacher right here in our English department provides really Mr. Nerby and the team with a semester-long interview process where they could see firsthand how Mr. Goblich worked with students, designed his lessons, responded to feedback, etc. During the past semester, both of his cooperating teachers, as well as Mr. Nerby, have been continuously impressed with his dedication to his lessons, his desire for feedback, and his willingness to listen to suggestions. He puts students first while also holding high expectations in his classroom. Mrs. Holly Michael, our current English teacher and Zach's cooperating teacher, had this to say: what impresses me most about Zach is his ability to listen and reflect. She also said during his lessons, he frequently stops to check for understanding while keeping students on task. Brian Winchester worked with Mr. Goblich at the Pier High School, said Mr. Goblich brings a very enthusiastic and positive demeanor to all education settings. He's energetic and encouraging while holding students to high standards and expectations. During the interview process, it was clear that Zach has enthusiasm and passion for English language arts and for learning in general. This passion, as well as his desire to be part of leading outside the classroom in various capacities, will serve our students and community positively as we move forward. We look forward to Zach bringing his expertise and knowledge to the English department. Just as an aside, as one example, he helps out with the boys basketball program. So he's a JV coach for us. We've seen him in action at Southern Door last night. So a motion to approve Zachary Goblich at Sturgeon Bay High School as an English teacher beginning this second semester of the 2022-2023 school year is recommended. And super quick, if I may, residents, if I remember, we have a semester retirement. So normally we aren't hiring people at at semester, but we have Mrs. Michael retiring at the end of first semester. He will then step in their second semester, so it's not an additional position, it's keeping that English staffing as is.
I move to approve Zachary Goldrich as the Sturgeon Bay High School English teacher beginning the second semester of the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
So Commissioner Schultz made the motion, Commissioner Augur seconded to approve Zachary Goldrich at Sturgeon Bay High School as an English teacher beginning second semester 2022-2023 school year. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, welcome aboard. Now we're down to open enrollment capacity.
Yeah, we've got two just brief informational items that you'll hear more about next month. That I just thought was appropriate to have as part of the running record for anyone tracking our meetings. So open enrollment, again, you talk about this every year, you take action on it in January, you see the brief summary there. I'll just kind of talk about it. We talked about it in the learning session a couple of weeks ago, different ways of looking at, okay, in general, do we want increased enrollment in the district? Right, obviously we do. At the same time, we're also kind of tempering at least a couple of different ways of looking at that, saying ideally we want more enrollment, but we also want it in the places where there's capacity, as opposed to, you know, having areas where really, oh, now we have too many students in some grades or programs, not enough in others. So it's an ongoing thing. President Stefani and I have talked about using some different topics associated with enrollment, right, and that impact on our school community as really kind of maybe themes of our February annual board retreat. But again, you have in your packet the grid that we talked about, right? Those two drafts, as an example, 2 weeks ago. So draft A is kind of the updated version of what we've done the last several years. That's really the one we're moving forward. But we also know in the back of our mind, we do have some grade levels, especially at the secondary level, where we get plenty capacity. It will take, you know, the vast majority of students that would apply, pending some of our special education areas that are full. And then we have to keep a close eye on those elementary sections. And I think, again, we'll continue to talk about this annually and what's the best way to handle this prior to when the board always takes action in January. That's all I have, unless someone has a question or comment or something I missed.
Hearing none, I think we go on to point number 7 here, summer school 2023 pilot.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit since my report back in October. I'll kind of and again, I'm not going to read right off of there. You've seen this and some other stuff. For a wide variety of reasons, it makes sense to look at kind of expanding summer school this coming summer. Some of it's student related, some of it's fiscal related, right? With our student FTE count for the district and positive ramification, you know, all these different things, supporting the family, working with our community partners, all those different types of things. And really, in a nutshell, I've got a 2-page memo that's all kind of drafted and ready to go. But along with some other stuff for tonight, we didn't think having you approve this tonight was necessary. You know, that's maybe necessary at this point. January seemed more appropriate, at least as I thought about it. And really, this memo will give some background. It will talk about the staff compensation piece, because we know unless the board takes special action, we're limited to what's currently in writing. And even if we go through that process like we do each year and have a first reading in May and a second reading in June, even if we update that hourly rate, that's really not done until the second week of summer school, which doesn't give some of our staff members who are kind of weighing options, right? Because we know there's summer options for them in the summer to kind of work all that through. So that's kind of what page 1 will be when you see that after the holiday. Page 2 addresses these topics: the financial impact and reminders, the timing of the summer school, which again, we're looking at 3 weeks after school ends in June, the weeks of June 12th, really to the 29th. Those 3 weeks before the 4th of July, we're looking at 4-day weeks, Monday through Thursday in the mornings only. And then depending on interest, potentially a second session, or session 2, as we're currently calling it in the memo, that starts that first week after July 4th. And really goes July 10th, July 27th, 3 4-day weeks, mornings only. Again, what we're currently thinking. So that's the timing. Location, we're thinking for the most part, elementary students would be at Sunrise, with the exception of something we're looking at possibly doing with 4K ramp up for those kids and families, which we believe would be appropriate to the 4K classrooms, as you can guess. Other than that, the secondary offerings would be here at the secondary campus, along with where some of the extracurricular and athletic stuff would occur. Other considerations, I'll touch on that we've been talking to the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club. We want to have some limited bus transportation, not only in the morning on the way in, but afterwards to certain locations such as the YMCA Boys and Girls Club. And again, there's a booklet that some team members, as well as someone like Mr. Jacobson sitting in the audience again tonight, have been working hard on. Right now, we have a Google form, kind of a survey of sorts, where teachers could sign up for certain weeks. They know that they could be available to teach certain things. And then as that information comes in next month, we're going to be able to kind of build what we think will be an early registration window for families, which we can then follow with a little bit of a later registration. Again, you'll hear more about that. And then we'll have the chance for you really to kind of give a stamp of approval to the pilot next month in our meeting. And then we'll have kind of a baseline of data to consider in future years as we think about summer school programming. So all I can think of for now, unless you have a question you have to ask at the moment.
I think we're good. I think we're now down to the riveting board policy updates section. of the meeting.
I'll do my best with it.
You got it.
Everybody ready? Here we go. All right, take sips of water as we need it.
Get on your auctioneer.
That's right, now 49, 49, no, okay, update 29.2. So again, we have a few different updates. As you know, really, in the past, we've made hay on this in the summer. So as I was reminding Mrs. Denise the other day, when she was working hard on this into the evening, I said, Ann, remember, I used to hammer away at this in the summer. And then as some of you might recall, a couple of summers ago, this thing called COVID happened, and then we fell behind on updates. Obviously, policy is important, but we all know it paled by comparison to the other items that happen in school. So other districts and ourselves are getting all caught up. So with that aside, the different updates, again, 29.2, and a lot of it kind of read through in the list of policy drafts pretty well. I know there's a few spots where it kind of bounced back and forth with the notes in here. There's a couple spots I'll make a note. And even some of the track changes. I know Commissioner Wood caught a couple spots where it was Board of Education. They were getting rid of education. And then in another spot, it looked like they were adding of education, which wouldn't make sense. And then as I look closer later this afternoon, it looks like, oh, the track changes. I was red, some places that actually had the line through it, and some it didn't. So some of that was just kind of an internal clerical thing with the way track changes were. All right, going back to it. So kind of number 8, if you will, President Stefani, Roman numeral 1, and then the small letter A, and I'll just kind of read down from there. So the 5,200 on attendance. Again, most of these policies, as you know, are revised. There are a few that are new or that we'll delete. And I think one where it's just a review, which is interesting. Basically, this one in a nutshell, remove some language on the tops of pages 1 and 2, and then add some language about being an election official, since, believe it or not, a student who's old enough could be election official, and that could get them excused from school, provided their parents are okay with it. Who knew? Next up, 614 Edgar 2.0 under cost principles, spending of federal funds. Again, you see there's some new federal requirements. That additional language is noted within the draft policy from Neola. Next up, 6145 on borrowing would be deleted in reference to, remember, sometimes this language then gets put into other policies or other new policies. 8420.01, you can kind of think back to when some of this would have been, oh yeah, COVID-19, coronavirus disease, this was new. And really some of the language, obviously we could function, we had authority to do so, but they were working on policies that then added, you see, epidemic and pandemic considerations for school operations, getting those embedded into school policy. So hopefully, 100 years from now, when there's the next one, and we won't have to worry about before then, or so we hope, right? Some of that wording's already there. 845001, really the PPE piece, right? I think those are letters not everyone would have known what they stand for before, but now unfortunately we all do. This is a new policy and again, deals a little bit with the when and how behind PPE. And the last one from the 29.2 update, 8450, control of casual contact communicable diseases. This is unique in that it just says reviewed. It's not too often you see that status, or that I see that in Neola or Mrs. D for that matter. But again, this was timely in that they wanted boards and districts to review that type of policy while a lot of that COVID stuff was happening. Moving along to Roman numeral 2 under number 8, updates from 30.1. This first one, 0141.1 student representation at board meetings. As you know, we have. That basically just adds a little orientation. We probably work through our student council advisor, in this case, someone like Dr. Jandren, to make sure, and whether it's Christy or future students have a little bit of a sense if they don't already know about how the school board works. So they know what they're getting into and are comfortable coming to our. Next, 2260.02 English language proficiency. You see really the reference to that term English learner or EL. And of course, that's timely because we talked a lot about our EL program numbers and future planning and staffing in our learning session just a couple of weeks ago. 3340 grievance procedure. This really is that whole note about fees or costs that could be charged by an impartial hearing officer, that if you get in that situation, and we've actually seen this before, that legal recommends the district would pay those fees to that impartial hearing officer to avoid future kind of entanglement with the whole due process thing. The next one, 4340, is the same basic note as above, but again, we're talking about the two different categories, right, of teacher policies and support staff policies. 5511, dress and grooming. Really, I can just kind of shorten this one to say revisions have been made to provide a more detailed and descriptive policy and process. Really, the policy recommends, I'm jumping down a little bit in the paragraph, a process whereby any application of the policy resulting in a student being temporarily excluded or required to basically change an article of clothing that could be deemed, being in place because they're violating the policy. That really should be reviewed administratively. I would put it in simple language to you as not a Neola attorney saying, basically, the principal should be involved, right? So rather than the teacher having to be the person making the decision or support staff, check with your principal, let him or her with experience kind of address both situation. Next up, 5895 student employment. This deals with work permits, and we indeed are a location, and I think we're down to one of only a couple places to do those. So that's kind of important for families that they can get those. Next up, 8451 pediculosis, probably more commonly known as head lice. That's been pretty quiet the last few years, although we know every year or two that this pops up. You see some different things about CDC, pediatrics, etc. I'm just going to go off of these notes and say, in the policy, you see that we selected option one, right, of several options, and really the option one in a nutshell, really wants the parents to come and pick up the child immediately if possible, to then take the child home and have the child treated. But it's not a case where obviously the child is thrown out on the street if the parent can't get there until a little later in the day. So that's in a nutshell what that is. Next up, Roman numeral 3 from update 30.2. 100 on definitions. Really, this kind of has a public records reference and mentions policy 8310 is the shortest way to describe that one. Next, 0143, authority of individual board members. You see that there's an option about a cross-reference to another policy, board member information requests. That is that main tweak. The next one dealing with board member ethics is deleted. I don't think it means board members can't have ethics, but I think we have some things built in elsewhere. 0144 conflict of interest. This is a little bit more, and this comes up, I know, for those of us that serve on other boards as well. Different legal standards. I think just my own notes here to touch on that there were a couple of changes, plus it looks like letters B and E had some green or new language as you saw the draft policy. Moving things along in the board section 0145 board member anti-harassment. Again, different language was brought forward regarding the prohibition of harassment by a board member from the conclusion of that policy. They moved that up to a more appropriate place closer to the beginning. 0167.3 public comment at board meetings, which we know we have. That was kind of clarifying a couple of different things dealing with open meetings and access to be given to third parties. Actually, Mr. President Stefani and I kind of touched on tonight, like there are ways a person can access and see our meetings. Right, we still have that even though there were changes with the way the cable access TV stuff works. Moving along, 0171.1 president, again, clearly differentiates the source of authority between the different district types, and we know we are a unified district. 74.2 school performance report, that's a deletion. Next up, 1130 ethics and conflict of interest. Some of that was touched on a little bit earlier, but again, in essence, no member of district staff should have personal or financial interest where that question of a conflict with their duties could be raised. Next up, 1210 board district administrator relationship. You see the description there. in essence, if a problem comes up, right, it's kind of always tricky, right? That I work for you, yet this is my full-time job and you expect me to lead, et cetera. If there's a concern with the board member, basically the person in my position goes to the board president. And if the concern is with the board president, then the person in my position talks to the board vice president. That's in a nutshell how that works. Moving along. 2240 controversial issues in the classroom. And I think we all know this sort of thing, makes the news far more than it did just a couple of years ago. The way I would encapsulate or kind of capture this is the quote of really avoiding what is called substantial disruption in the school environment. In my young assistant principal days, this dealt with maybe a Miller Lite t-shirt or other types of shirts that, some were, let's just say, a bit more inappropriate than that over the years. And so really, as people are trying to address controversial issues, which again, much hotter topic than it used to be, as different things are perfectly safe to be discussed by some families and other families aren't okay with that, as you and I know. Really, we want to have our leaders, myself, our principals, help guide our staff that, hey, don't go down a path that can cause substantial disruption in the school environment. Moving along, 2266, back to my notes here, non-discrimination on the basis of sex and education programs or activities. I think we have that whole description, but the way I would describe it is really you see an updated definition for a word like rape in this example. And then you see some other references to third parties and how third parties tie into that whole piece. Next up, not in your notes, but as I was following through on my screens and my notes, policy 2414, the way it came through in the packet of what Mrs. Denise sent you, dealing with human growth and development, another potentially hot topic we know is important. So option 2 was selected as I was reading through there. So, that is an important topic. We do teach health class. In our district, we know that at the middle school level, not at the high school level, a lot of school districts have gone that same route. So as far as how that works, and a team that meets, Director Weber knows that that's on her list from Dr. Schmagel and my reminders that, oh yeah, we got to get that team together every few years with different people from the community to go through how that all works. So that's 2414, not in the background document, but in your packet. Going back to the background document, letter M, 2430 district sponsored clubs and activities. This is actually something a few of us talked about, and the admin team reviewed this a couple of meetings in our fall administrative meetings to make sure that as we have, especially those clubs that are not directly tied into the classroom, that kids are doing what they need to do. Yes, staff members are supervisors, but in essence, kids need to take the lead. So that was what we were talking about, separate from the Neola revision process and the notes in the draft. Letter N, 2431, interscholastic athletics, another revised policy. You see the information about concussion protocols, other things about administrative guidelines. You and I talk about that once in a while, where we try not to have separate administrative guidelines. If we don't need them, we try to tie them right into the policy when it is doable. Just kind of simplifies things for everybody. Next up, 2701 school performance reports and accountability report cards. This is revised. And again, we actually talked quite a bit about report cards just a month ago. You heard some from me and some from Director Weber and some from our principals. We know that that's a timely topic there. Last one on this page, 312004, employment of substitutes. Again, you see some different legal standards, how that ties in with board members and employment of staff and so forth. Flipping over to the next page. One of several things that's good news on this page, we'll have some overlap, so I'll have something I'll get to skip for you pretty quick. Here we go, 3120, employment of professional staff. Again, different legal standards referring board members, et cetera, employment are the notes. Next up, letter R, 3170 and 4170 is a substance abuse policy to be deleted, and then you see incorporated into a different set of policies. 3215, use of tobacco, in this case by professional staff, is revised. You see that tobacco products retailer in quotes, that comes up several different places. And so again, I think as you think of different products, vaping, et cetera, how that continues to progress, that'll come up another spot or two. 3216 and 4216 dealing with staff dress and grooming. again, the updates on different legal standards and the allowing of, district staff and kind of guidelines, diversity, et cetera. Letter U deals with really 1130, 3230, 4230 for the different series, ethics and conflict. This came up in a different conflict of interest, in a different way from something I had read earlier. Again, being very careful of their personal financial interest, making sure we don't have a conflict with their duties coming up. Letter B, 412004, employment of substitutes, again, tying in there. And again, that's the type of thing we could even talk more about in the future as we think about substitutes and board members and how that might look. Legal has weighed in and said, in essence, not to do that at this point, but perhaps that changes and perhaps our board wants to talk more about that in the future. 4120, employment of support staff. Again, you see legal standards along those same lines. 4161, unrequested leaves of absence. This updated to reflect that process and to align with the language in policy 3161, unrequested leaves of absence. And again, difficult situations, maybe a person doesn't want to be on leave, but it's in the best interest of the district to have the person receive an assessment. And, those are some of the things that policies like that get into. Moving along, we've got 3170 and 4170 with substance abuse. We touched on that earlier, the deletion. Next up, 4215, we touched on that earlier, that tobacco products retailer kind of quotes piece. Next up, 3216, 4216, touched on that earlier with staff dress and grooming. Next up, ethics and conflict of interest revision language, touched on that earlier since there's 3 different policies that are all related from the different series. Next up, 5112, entrance age. You see some different things about removing enrollment information that's not statutorily required. And then I would look at that, and one of the pieces that was highlighted for you is really, yes, we also expect families to give us accurate information about a student's expulsion status. Obviously quite rare, but if a person were to lie to us about the student being expelled and then we find out about, that's a problem. So that's one I would highlight for you there. Next up, 5500.01, conduct in the virtual classroom. This is one of those things that we didn't really have a need for it. And then COVID happened. And then all of a sudden, there's different things where, the teacher and principal need a little bit of latitude to deal with perhaps misbehavior when kids are attending remotely. 5512, the use of tobacco and nicotine. Again, a little different than the earlier, but you see the tobacco products retailer phrasing fitting there. And so we've covered that already. 5520, disorderly conduct. This was also updated or revised, to more closely align with the disciplinary options that are available under Wisconsin law these days. 5720, student activism and expressionism. The policy is revised to clarify language and incorporate adherence to board policy, and then also guidelines as appropriate as an expectation in the course of student expression, right? Student activism, expression, protected things, important, but we also want to make sure that it's done properly and doesn't turn into the distraction that I referenced up above with a different policy. 5880, public performance by students. Policies revised to better reflect practice associated with student performances out in the community and to remove reference to a guideline that's no longer available. All right, coming down the home stretch of the policy part here in this page. I think the first two, 6152 and 615201, in the way they scanned in from the Neola stuff, I think they were flip-flopped in that version. I'll still read the background as they are in this order in our packet. Policy was revised to clearly identify no student shall be denied participation in any education opportunity there due to their inability to pay any fee or charge imposed. Again, you see a reference to the homelessness piece, the McKinney-Vento Act, some of you probably are familiar with or have heard about. Very similarly, in 615201, the waiver of school fees or fines. This is a new one versus the other that was revised. Again, you see reference to McKinney-Vento and not wanting or can't have barriers to enrollment and barriers to a student being involved in things through outstanding fees, fines, etc. I think I'll just pause before going on to the next one. Some of you might recall before COVID dominated a lot of things in the summer, there was this national or the public radio, NPR was doing some things about lunch shaming, where there were practices in other states, especially if I recall on the West Coast, where kids in essence were being not included or given something for lunch that kind of embarrassed them, that everyone knew, oh, they're behind on their lunch account. Really, that's not how I think that has been done in much of the Midwest, and it certainly wasn't how we were doing it here. You've heard from Jenny Spooty on how she approaches that creatively, how she and, Mary Nickel before, now Casey in our office, right, really discreetly and appropriately work with families to make sure whether they're certified directly or get them the paperwork for free and reduced lunch, that happens. And then if there are situations where family, for whatever reason, wasn't qualifying for free and reduced lunch for a while and accrued a balance due to one change or another, working with the family to pay that down. Sometimes we get donations to help those families kind of say, all right, we'll kind of split the difference with you. If you pay this half, this person donating to cover your other half to get you caught up. So all those things happen to avoid lunch shaming. But I think what you just heard from me is a follow-up, at least in part, to when that practice was getting some pretty negative press, understandably, a couple of summers ago. All right, moving along. 7434, use of tobacco and nicotine on school premises. Again, there's that tobacco products retailer phrasing that has come up several times. Moving along, 744001, video surveillance and electronic monitoring. And again, while we've certainly had that on campus for safety reasons, this gets into, oh yeah, that whole virtual online learning piece and how those pre-recorded lessons and different things could actually be used to observe a teacher and so on and so forth. I think the only other one I found when I was scrolling through everything that didn't show up on this list, but is in your packet, would be 7450. So I'll just address that one. That one was entitled Property Inventory. There were a couple of changes in there, basically dealing with some different wording things. It touched on assets over $5,000 should be part of inventory, and a little bit of new language. Again, that was 7450 Property Inventory in your packet. Just the summary description was lacking here. Moving along, letter MM 7455, Accounting System for Capital Assets. This really, again, deals with different fiscal requirements. I would highlight the two words grant programs in the middle of that paragraph, and you can kind of think, oh boy, grants are important. They've become more and more important over the years, and think of everything that's happened with grants even in the last couple of years. Moving along, 8500 food services. And again, you hear from Jenny regularly, and we know we have a lot of confidence in her. There are some different things about the USDA and some other pieces to avoid. Again, I mentioned lunch shaming or non-discrimination statements and so forth. That's all a part of this revision. 8510 wellness. Okay, you've heard before, like from Jake and insurance, we have a wellness group for our staff. This is really more so on the student side. So there's some different updates in there. And actually, Ann and I were just talking about this not that long ago, partially because of the revision, but getting our wellness group. Some of you that have been around school boards longer remember when the whole wellness thing came up the first time. Oh, we shouldn't have soda at basketball games and all this other stuff. The high school principal in my previous district, oh, that was me, called it wellness schmellness because I thought it went way too far, but I digress on a December evening. I'll go back to my notes. 9270 home-based private or tribal schooling. You see the revision here about the different options and then what then allows them to participate in with activities. You hear about this from time to time. 9500 relations with educational institutions and organizations. Again, different relationships with different entities. Probably you hear from Keith Nerby on this a little bit more than the other principals because of what happens at the high school level. Some of that falls under 9500. And I think the last one for tonight, 9700 relations with non-school affiliated groups. Again, a little bit more with kind of that wording. And then you see a little bit about crowdfunding and some of those different creative fundraising things that now are kind of shifted elsewhere. So that would be really the end of the first readings. This last list, if you will, that's a partial page and has out there for us the technical corrections. We just thought it was important to touch base on this. Certainly there are districts, including ours, that don't require a technical correction to come before the board. But Ann and I felt we're going through so much of this, getting it caught up, just to make sure you're aware that, okay, here's a list from, and that's why it's update 30.2 TC, just technical corrections. When something is a technical correction, really either the reference to the state statute was updated or changed, or there's some sort of terminology, honestly, sometimes even what I might call a clerical error that was in the policy where you don't really have to wrestle with it. And we normally try not to bother you with it. At the same time, we also never want a situation where, oh, it's a simple list. And as we're getting caught up,
you know, why wouldn't we at least make the board aware that there were technical corrections? So this is kind of one of those, I'll just say, as presented, President Stefani, that, you know, those policies all receive some sort of technical correction. But it really doesn't appear to be, unless we miss something in working with Neola, the type of thing that the board has to wrestle with. I think that's all I got.
That's plenty. All right. So I think we are down to reports. So get some water, Dan. That's good. Rest the golden throat, and we'll get to some other.
I think Principal Nervy's up.
Nervy's up, yes.
Come on, Principal Nervy, I had to read all those. You should have been chomping at the bit to step up to the podium.
All right. All right. I get to follow that, eh? Okay.
Pretty easy, isn't
Come
it?
up here and do just about anything.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to give a couple of recognitions and a few things that we're doing. So following Mr. Smolin, the middle school's lead, the high school has started a recognition program for our students as well. We meet with my building leadership team, our school leadership team, as we call it, the high school. And Heidi Hintz has taken a big lead in helping us set up a student recognition program. So we call it Clipper Nation. Our teachers, this will be starting when we get back from the holidays, but our teachers will be recognizing those students. And one of the things that we're trying to focus on are our students who are just coming every day and doing what's expected of them. You know, sometimes we take for granted, or we just, you know, kind of go with that flow of kids are doing what they want, but we really want to celebrate those successes. As Dr. Jandren had mentioned when we were talking, he's part of our building leadership team. And he said, you know, sometimes we just get so bogged down in that 5%, that 3%, the kids who are taking a lot of our time and attention, and we forget to celebrate really all of the great, good things that are happening. And so just a way to kind of lift up spirits, we are doing that as well. So we're excited. Our teachers are going to be recognizing students. We have local businesses who are donating as well. And so we'll randomly select several of the students each week, share it on the announcements, and they get to come down and pick from the goodie box of the donated items, which is pretty cool. So again, it's a whole community event. So we're kind of excited about that. And I mentioned Heidi Hintz. I just want to mention I was at the band concert this weekend. Dan was there as well. I saw a couple of you there. It was, and I don't say that hyperbole, but one of the best band concerts that I have seen. I've been a principal for 13 years, and this was, they were just outstanding. She kept apologizing. There's, you know, a lot of sickness going on in our schools, as you can imagine, right now. And so, you know, Mark might talk about it, but I think they were down 20% of the 8th graders last week. My son was one of them for a couple of days. But so they were down a few band students, but they did an amazing job. And it was just one of those things where, like, just filled your bucket. Again, you're just kind of seeing all the hard work. It's fun to walk around and see them practicing, but then to hear them perform and do so well on stage, it was a lot of fun. So just wanted to give a shout out. A lot of that credit goes to Heidi and the work she does with our kids every day. While I'm on that, I do want to mention January 12th, our choir concert is happening, and Avery Burns, our new choir teacher, has been doing a phenomenal job. We do our fire drills every month, you know, and when her kids go out, they are singing out there and doing practicing fire. And it's just kind of funny to hear that. They came around today, and we're doing some caroling during the day, and so that was fun to see and things like that. So just a lot of really cool, great things happening with that. One other quick thing I want to mention is tomorrow, assuming the weather holds off, we will be
You're gonna steal part of my report, aren't you?
Okay, well, just saying, I mean, as all my friends all over the state are, anyway, I won't go into that. We are honoring Jim Benich at the Algoma, at our game against Algoma tomorrow night. I want to thank Amy and Haley for donating a great banner sign that will be in our gym. As many of you know, it's a great day to be a Clipper. And so that will be in there to honor and just remember him, as well as they got a copy of his Hall of Fame trophy that we will be displaying in our case here as well, so people can see that. So that'll be tomorrow night at the game. We do have contingency plans in case something were to happen. And then just real quick, I just want to mention for those listening or watching, if they stayed after all of our superintendent's report here, that we come back from break and we have a quick, short 2-week turnaround time before the semester ends here at the high school. And so that means final exams. So that communication has gone out to families, but that Thursday and Friday, the 12th and 13th, we have exams. So there are half days at the high school as we prepare for that. So quick turnaround time with everything. So that's what we got going on.
Thank you, Principal Derby. As Principal Smallin steps forward, Keith and I were talking about how a number of years ago, some of you might recall, where we had basically, what was it, a whole week of cold weather coming out of the winter or Christmas break. And I think the year before, we had some weather going into the break. So hopefully we don't have that before. Time will tell. And then from the band concert, of all the concerts I've gone to, you made some comments, I won't repeat those, but the second song of the night, and for those of you that appreciate the movie Elf, I get a kick out of that, good old Will Ferrell, right? And so the second song of the night was entitled Santa's Got a Brand New Bag. So those of you that know Elf reference in that particular scene with the department store, I thought that's the best song title I think I've ever seen in a winter concert. Nicely played. Principal Smallin, what do you have for us?
All right, Elf is 20 years old. Remember that? So just want to let you know, on what we've been working on as a staff, first, I mean, as he mentioned, supporting kids, recognizing them, that comes from Stephen Jacobson. He really set the tone on the bar on that. So he deserves a lot of praise for what he's done. He's really changed the landscape at the middle school. So hats off to him. From a staff, we've been working on trying to basically the biggest thing we've been working on is trying to change how we use the corporate time. Corporate time for us, historically going back to when I came here and well beyond that, and some of you guys have went to school here, is a study hall. And so we're trying to now do what some of the things are. I work with staff is working towards analyzing some of the data and figuring out what we can help students with. And I think we're having a meeting on January 11th. We're having a meeting on that. Staff is going to work towards identifying students they can better support, how to help them with their learning and things that they're doing down in the elementary, bringing that up in the middle school. So as we work towards that, that's something you're going to see, I think, happen more and more at our level. So that's the first thing. Second thing I want to let you know, as we talked in that meeting a couple of weeks ago, I test all the kids in access testing. We have 53 kids that we test. 34 are done already, 19 left. A couple of them are on vacation. So we hope, honestly, it should take much longer, a couple of days to wrap this all up. But that's good. And our goal again is really to take those listening, reading, speaking, writing tests. We want to learn, or they want to get a cumulative average of 5, so they can be moved out of access, out of the oh my gosh, on the EL program. Sorry. And then just a couple of things. Exciting news, athletics. We trying to, as we get back in school and spring things, we saw like 7th grade girls volleyball was undefeated this year. 8th grade boys, they won their conference tournament. They only lost 1 game. So that's great to see. Girls actually boys wrestling is underway this month. So that's boys and girls wrestling has started this month. Basketball begins Wednesday, January 4th. Parents, please get all the paperwork in. And then as Principal Nervy said, school resumes Tuesday, January 3rd. Quarter ends quickly, but remember, just like they have exams, the middle school has exams too. So you're gonna see more information on that when those exam dates are. We have semester exams at the middle school, so first and second semester. STAR testing is the 16th January to the end of the month. And then as Dan alluded to, a lot of students have been out, right, with sickness, more than I've ever seen in times of the year. So, and so sometimes I'm not sure if they're sick, or if they're just kind of hankering not to come back or not engaged all the way. But we are facing attendance is probably becoming our biggest woe. So that's something else we have to focus on. But we really need students in school, parents, if we make sure they have medical, dental, optical, mental health. Probably bring those notes back so we can take that off your attendance and just we want to do the best help you all. If you do get a 7 or 10 day letter, be sure to contact and follow up and calling the principal so we can set up an attendance plan to get your child back on the things. So want to see the attendance boost. We were at a great start September, but boy, December has been the roughest I've ever seen. So I'm sure that's at many levels. All right, thank you. Have a good holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Smallin. Only we had another Principal Smallin. Wait a minute, we do, and there she is. Good evening, Katie.
Yeah, we're also, with a lot of sickness too, but we've been excited. Our last week we did our ambassador trip. Every month we have an ambassador trip. We had Just Colin's son was chosen as an ambassador, and it's tough to choose for the teachers out of their classroom, but then we go on a trip and they made blankets for people who are at the North Cancer Center. So it was really cool to make the type blankets and deliver them. And Crossroads opens up their facility to us. They play Christmas music, put on the fire. It was a fun thing to do and to give back to the community. We're also looking forward to, at the end of January, to getting our STAR test data back that we'll take. And then we're gonna take some time to dig into that, do a big data dig and go to, the kids will be going to Crossroads, the whole school will, over those 3 days. And they've got, some great things planned, building winter shelters and building a fire and roasting s'mores and just learning all about surviving in the winter. So yeah, we're looking for, I know the kids are gonna have a great time and we're really looking forward to that time. Laurel Hauser is going to be helping out. We even got former principal Hanley to come and help out on that day. So we're really grateful for all the community support to do that. And I wrote a little bit more in my my report that you can read, but yeah, it's been positive, hardworking group. So ready for a break though, for sure.
Indeed. Awesome. Thank you, Katie. You heard her mention the fifth edition with the fourth in process, with the kids that are writing at Sunrise. That one night, right, she passed around the first edition for us. They're writing away, which is a good thing. Greetings, Jen. What do you have for us tonight?
Well, just a couple of quick things that were not on my written report. Lots going on behind the scenes. I'm finding that to be one of the interesting challenges of the job. It's like super busy, but it's always seems to be like the behind the scenes stuff. So a few of those things include a job fair, my first ever. Jake and I went to Stevens Point in what seemed like a snowstorm last week, Friday, and experienced our first job fair at University of Stevens Point. We learned a few things and we're taking some steps to hopefully attend some more, maybe a little closer to home in the near future. Oshkosh, for example, was one of the ones that we're trying to get into. So we're excited about that. I've also started to host what I'm calling roundtables at both the middle and high school. We did 2 high school roundtables in the last week and a half. There's one scheduled at the middle school for the second week in January. The hope for that is to just invite teachers who really want to start tackling some of our what we would call at-risk students, academically at-risk students, and it's just what it is. It's a roundtable. We come together with thoughts and ideas. Some of the things that are coming out of that from the high school include incentives around testing time. So incentivizing students who put extended effort into the ACT test, for example. So some big moves happening in the literacy initiative as well. I know it seems like we've just been sort of waiting. I keep mentioning the middle of the year data window that we're still patiently waiting for. But aside from that, we will in January officially kick off our review of a core curriculum in literacy. So we're excited about that. That's slated to start in January and go through May, once a month meetings. We're getting a team together, so you'll hear some more about that. Also, included in the information that Anne put together for you, you may have seen and hopefully have an opportunity to listen to on the podcast, Sold a Story. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. I think others in the room who have listened to it would also recommend it. Paired with a document that we put together called How We Teach Reading in Sturgeon Bay Schools. And it kind of provides that foundation and background for why we're pushing so hard on this now. Again, I can't say enough about the podcast. It's kind of a good way to head into Christmas break, if you will. 6 episodes, easy listen, really engaging, and really intense listening. So I invite you to take a listen. Speaking of meetings, the teaching and learning department set and ready to go. So all these fun meetings that we get to have, curriculum review, roundtables can now be hosted in the Teaching, Learning and Technology Center, which I invite you to walk through on your way out of this meeting today. To be fair, we still have to work on some design elements, if you will, some decor, because it's just we just moved in this week, so please take a moment to come back and take a look. Pretty great. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. As Lindsay comes forward, what she referenced to the how we teach reading, that information has actually been in process for a good year and a half, maybe even closer to 2 years, if I'm recalling, Jen, right? Thank you, 2 years. So that the Soul the Story is an interesting podcast. I mean, I was quite interested in that. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but the way it talks about some of the history and the politics and how that all fits together, I think most of you would find it interesting. That isn't the reason why they put the how we teach reading, but it's very timely. So they kind of updated that document for our families and for our staff. They kind of mentioned something quite recently. Again, this Soul the Story, if you just Google it or whatever, it'll come up, the series of 6. You can kind of listen at your leisure. You can download it, and for those of you that like to do that while you're doing something else, worth a listen. Once you listen to kind of that first episode, you go like, man, I can't wait to listen to the next episode. It's really pretty good. And again, ties in well with literacy, even though that itself wasn't the driver. We just wanted to make sure from the team that I had a chance to reinforce that with you. Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's one more update on the special education side that I am finalizing my last interview for the teaching position that I have open at Sawyer. So we're looking to fill the one position that we lost at the end of October. So we've interviewed 3. I have one more interview tomorrow. We're hoping to finalize that on Friday. So then I can bring that hire to you in January. What will probably happen with this position, just so you're aware, and I'm saying it to the whole group so that parents are aware if they're listening, is we're going to tweak things a little bit at Sawyer because we know we need some more support in different areas. And so we're using this position a little bit more creatively where they can take on more students from other caseloads. And so we're building kind of a brand new caseload amongst the other caseloads. So what'll end up happening and how this impacts students is that some families will have a new special education case manager overseeing their child's paperwork, their IEPs and so forth. So I'll be sending out that communication the 1st or 2nd week of January when we know, and then that teacher will communicate with families as well, introducing themselves, letting them know of the adjustments, but it's something that the team agreed upon and we know is the right thing to do so that we can help support students a little bit better. The last thing that I wanted to chat about is our family engagement sessions in the district. And so we had just finished our 2nd family engagement session. They were the sessions that I shared with you on the flyers. The session we had in December was on how to support your anxious child. So it was a very well attended event. We had many families that came and families of all ages. And so we offer childcare. And we had, it wasn't our best laid plans, but we had one foreign exchange student who was going to oversee the childcare area because the first session we had 3 small kids. Well, I think we had 19 kids come to this one. And so we had all hands on deck, playing with the kids as parents listened, but it was a really great group of parents because they listened, they supported one another, they were sharing ideas, they were giving options. And it was a really great partnership with DCMC as we had 2 of their mental health therapists come and present to the families. One of the comments at the end of it was, can we do this every month? Can we have, this opportunity to share? And so I was really pleased with how that went. And it's going to roll into our next session in January, where we talk about, mental health is of a concern. We know that. Now, what can we do as a school to better help support those needs academically and behaviorally? So I'm hoping that a lot of those families come and new families come again because we're picking up steam as we go. Any questions for me? The next session is held on January 9th.
The topic, you said it, but.
Yeah, I forget the exact title of it, but what it is what are the additional supports that your child can access in the school system? And so we're going to be talking about special education, of course, 504 plans, health plans, but more importantly, all of the other things we can do before we get to that process. Like all of the things our regular ed staff can do. But in the event we can't, get to some of those things, all the options, just teaching parents. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yes, we get ready to turn it over to Jake. I think, whether it's conversations Lindsay and I have had, or the principals or our teacher leaders, when they try something new in these sessions, right? And it's like, hey, even if one parent or family comes and we really help them out, it's worth it. But then when internally, of course, we always want more to come. And then after a session like that, where it's like, whoa, we actually had quite a turnout. They
were engaged, they wanted to come again. It's like, hey, great work to that pupil services team and others that are brainstorming those things. Jake, what you got for us?
Well, Lindsay was up there, my computer decided to restart, but, I think I got most of what I need back up. The year-end projections I emailed earlier today and are in front of you. Mostly everything is running according to schedule. Follow-up, Director Weber mentioned the job fair we were at. I think it was a good success. We had about half dozen teacher candidates share their information with us. We had some good conversations. I want to call any of those imminent. But again, I think we learned some, and I think it's worthwhile to continue to pursue those opportunities into the future. Jen mentioned UW Oshkosh. I had that up March 16th this year, and then actually a month earlier, UW Whitewater, which is a big special education school. One final note, I have the year-end projections, and Dan mentioned Jenny's food service earlier. So very high level update. I know we're piloting the free breakfast. Year to date, we're down about $20,000 on the fund balance, which is, I think, a good sign. That we're down. That's less than 10%, and generally that climbs back up between now and the end of the year anyway. So again, very high level information right there. Okay. Questions on anything I sent out?
I think on the job fair, just kind of transitioning, and then I think I have 3 items I'll highlight and 2 additional. I think it fits with some of the stuff Lindsay talked about tonight and elsewhere, different ways to try to, get at candidates. And I told Jen and Jake, like, hey, even if we have, whether we hire someone out of the UW Stevens Point thing, first go around, probably not likely, but even the possibility of a candidate and then what else we learned to tweak our process is worth it. When I was at the DC EDC board meeting this week, I shared with them the fact that Jake and Jen were there, and I said, some of these young people have significant others. And as they think about going somewhere, anything we can do to support, all the different county businesses. Obviously, I'm a little more partial towards Sturgeon Bay, which they understand, but like any businesses, small, large, in between, plus information that DCEDC has done about selling Sturgeon Bay to young professionals about a place, not just a vacation, but live and work and so forth. Like anything we can do to fine tune that process. So whether it's Jake and Jen at, a career fair or whatnot, and they're talking, and the next thing hey, here's this information. And then, well, yeah, my significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whatever, is in this line of work. Oh, here's information you can quickly find that can kind of flow back and forth, and anything we can do to kind of help each other out and create the community is worth it. So that was kind of a nice kind of offshoot conversation on Monday. In my report itself, I think, again, that first page, you heard us talk about that with report cards. I just wanted to make sure it was in the board packet report, not just after the fact, what I did last month. The CISA PAC meeting on page 2, kind of some, as we get into state budget, especially for those of you that are interested in the legislative information, this is just my version of the 5 bullet points, that whether we're talking about Republicans, Democrats, whoever down in Madison, and your typical person in the public, do they agree with providing more special education support? They do, right? Democrats and Republicans don't agree on exactly how much, how fast, but the concept that's there, 4K funding and support with kiddos. A lot of folks realize we need to do something about that. The literacy, reading, and support, Joel can speak to this if you ever bump into him, but we know there are Republicans and Democrats that would support that. It's just a matter of figuring out how to do it. Mental health piece, Lindsay and others have touched on, and then really things like college and career readiness. We know that there are businesses that need people. We know youth apprenticeship is a step in the right direction. All the way around that, as we've talked with the legislators in our kind of regional superintendent meetings, they're interested in that, right? Because they hear from their businesses, their constituents. It's like, okay, how do we incentivize this? Because Keith Nerby can explain to you that while, okay, the report card, there's work to do, right? There's work to do regardless of our score. While there's information about college and career readiness in the Sturgeon Bay High School report card, but they don't really get credit for any of that. It's just reported information as opposed to, wait a minute, we've got kids who are going off to great universities, plus we have kids that are working youth apprenticeships. There probably should be a way to incentivize that in a variety of ways. So those were just my takeaways after a number of meetings and a couple things that Joel and I have done with the Door and Kewaunee County Supers. So moving on from that, under the community engagement, I just wanted to touch on community programming. Ironically, I was giving a shout out to both Jen and Cheryl Feaster for their work behind the community programming offerings this winter. And of course, we recognize Cheryl, right? We know she's a go-getter. We're happy to have her on our team there. So I just wanted to mention that. And really the two additional items I have that I think that we'll be able to end on tonight. One, Lindsay and I met with Tanya Fellhofer, right, new CEO. Many of you know Tanya at the Y, right, no stranger to our community, and Tyler Powell about some different thoughts we have. Some of this overlaps actually with our board learning session conversation from a couple weeks ago. So we've got some ideas around programming for the future, right? They're updating their facility. They've got some ideas. So we'll see where it leads. We're going to circle back next month, but I'm hoping there's some cool opportunities, good for kids and families and the Y and certainly our district, that we want to kind of move that conversation forward, not just around working together on something like a summer school offerings, but some actual programming during the year that I think just makes sense. So it was Lindsay and I were talking, it's fascinating how some of the stuff we've been talking about as a team and with you as a board and the Y's talking about how parallel some of that is. And so we'll see how that crosses over. So I wanted to make you aware of that because that was very positive. And then really the last thing, I think Principal Nerby is aware he's about to be in charge of snow days and the cold days and everything else. Actually, as I'm giving my daughter a ride home after practice tonight, Dad, even the coach are asking that if I can let them know, if we might know something. And of course, she's now old enough that she's been around, people don't really understand how it works, Dad. So it was kind of fun. So I was chuckling as a dad as well as superintendent. So again, we'll see what happens. The superintendents from the county and I are going to connect tonight about tomorrow. I think we all can kind of tongue in cheek say, hey, the weather forecasters a week ago, oh, we're going to have this massive storm. And we all know that's not what happened. So does it look likely that we're going to have a little more than that this week? It does. So I think there's the tomorrow piece. So we're working through, and I won't bore you to tears. The board has a sense for how that works. So we'll see. Obviously, we'd like to have school tomorrow, ideally a full day of school tomorrow, if at all possible, with the break coming. And then if indeed we really are going to get that amount of snow, and if indeed they really are talking about getting that crazy windy, which I will say they usually get the wind forecast right for us in this part of the world, that probably, that would have a serious impact on Friday, which I know won't break a number of people's hearts. If we picked one day of the whole winter, that probably doesn't have a ton of academic impact. I think we know which day that would be. So really, as I've talked with my neighbors and talked with Lucas with Hobison, said, boy, if there is going to be that impact on Friday, which we can guess is probably coming, especially if it really does hit us, right? And it's snowing at least in the next couple hours plus all the wind. My thought would be, and again, my neighbors north and south totally agree, that it'd be nice to make an announcement tomorrow afternoon in time for kids, families to make sure everything gets home for the holidays, the staff. I don't think we need snacks and other things either spoiling over the whole break, or in fairness to families, like, oh boy, maybe there's items they want to get, and then our school offices are trying to figure out, goodness, do we have to open a day next week to people get in? So again, there's a number of ifs there, but it wouldn't shock me at all if people are seeing a message from me tomorrow afternoon about Friday, and then everybody knows they can gather their stuff up. Yes, unfortunately, that probably would impact the game tomorrow night, but I don't think anybody's going to be shocked at that. So a few different things in motion. I also have my own little, the written version. You know how I like to write and describe things, but kind of kills me when people are calling off school before snow even falls, right? Every winter it happens at least once. Well, it's ironic. A friend of mine who's a superintendent down in the valley, guess what? Several of the valley districts, including bigger ones like Oshkosh and Fond du Lac, I think had already called off early to mid-afternoon. And again, I don't think it's even snowing there yet. So I don't know. I shake my head sometimes, but I don't pull out my hair because I don't have any left. Commissioner Wood, are you ready? Yes, that's right. So anyway, stay tuned on that. I'll have, again, I got a little bit more succinct written version, but I did want to touch on that for the record at the end of tonight. And then we'll see. Supposed to get cold, and then next week it's supposed to be warm and wet. Go figure.
Wisconsin and North.
Yeah, late next week, just mild and rain.
The days are getting long.
That's right, we're getting past it. Way to go, Commissioner Wood.
Yeah, thanks. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Wood to adjourn. Any further discussion? Of course not. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
North Carolina beat Michigan tonight. There you go. And as Jen stops the recording, she'll open up that door if you just kind of want to peek into that, what was rather large, interesting looking space. And now it's some offices and a meeting room back there for the people.
I want to quick ask, I didn't know if it fit in the agenda
I
at
got
all.
8:42.
Is anybody going to school board convention that would like to go to the delegate assembly in my place?
I would love to. I don't think I'm allowed though.
I love it.
Throw that out there.
I'm really sad I'm not. I do love the law. It's a delegate assembly where you talk about, you listen in on what policies are coming before the legislative agenda. I don't know who's going.
I am going.
I'm planning to go.
It means missing a session. It's on Wednesday at 1:30. I have the packet where you can see what's all being debated on the floor.
Yeah, you can send it my, we can figure it out, but
Yeah.
I need to go and
Are you okay with me sending it to work tomorrow?
to work. Oh, yes.
Okay,
It's in paper. It's not electronic, is what you're telling me.
yes, I have a paper
Okay.
mailing. It's old school.
It's not, there is no electronic copy?
There probably is, but I've always taken the paper.
Got it. Okay, yeah, send it to work.
Send it inter office mail.
There you go.